We're in a series called Rediscovering Jesus. Because religion has taken Jesus out of the equation. Little by little, we have, over the years, chopped away Jesus, removed him little by little out of our services, out of our lives, out of our preaching and teaching, and we've gone into a lot of, I'll be nice and say, unnecessary stuff that has nothing to do with Christ. And so, I believe because of that, we have gotten off track, and I'm speaking church as a whole, that we've got to come back and rediscover Jesus for who he is. He came to unveil the Father, because if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He came to unveil the Godhead so that we would know them. And that was the prayer of the Apostle Paul in in Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 17, that we would know him, have a revelation of him. And then even Paul, in his later years, would write, that I may know him. So, this is all about an unveiling of a person, Jesus. So we're in this series called Rediscovering Jesus. And we're also combining this series with Thursday nights. So you will need to listen to Thursday nights and Sunday mornings. If you miss one or two or whatever, you've got to catch up. Because we're line upon line rediscovering Jesus. And I don't want you to miss any aspect of it, because today's is really really more of a continuation of Thursday, specifically when we talked about that internal castle. So if you got your outline, the title of this, and I really hate titling messages because it can be misleading. You'll look at a title and go, oh, I don't know. And then it would be the very message you need because the title misled you. So I really don't even like titling stuff, but for the fact that when you get on the internet, you're on the website, and you're looking for that particular one, titles are necessary. But the title is Faith Without Works. I've got some noise happening here. Faith Without Works. And how I came across this, and this is just me posturing myself before the Lord all week long to hear what he's saying to me personally, maybe what he's saying to us corporately. And so I'm working on the computer, and I've got some news in the background. And I'm listening to what's being said, and then I'm also working on some things. And a particular congressman who just recently got elected, I'm not going to name his name, was being interviewed on a talk radio. And I'm listening to it in the background, and the guy's asking him all the pertinent questions about things going on in our country today. And he's saying what his party believes, as if he was on the other side, he would be saying what that party believed. And all he was doing was giving us what we would call today talking points. Now, that's okay if you're just some journalist, or there's no such thing as journalism today, but if you're just some guy who does the news. But you're a congressman, so we don't need talking points. So they asked him about the immigration, asked him about Afghanistan, and all I'm hearing is what we have regurgitated for the last however long. So I'm waiting, okay, well, you're a congressman, and it was over, and I got very angry. I'm like, you know what? All you did was tell me what somebody else believed, or it could be what I believe. But all we're doing is being a choir to each other. You ever heard the statement, I'm preaching to the choir? You know what that means? Anybody know what that means?
Tell them what they want to hear.
I'm preaching to the choir means that I'm preaching something you agree with. So why am I preaching it to you? I need to be preaching it to somebody who doesn't agree with it. And and then it hit me that all these politicians do is preach to their base what they want to hear. But it really gets worse if you're a congressman or a senator, because my question to this guy was, you've given us absolutely nothing what are you going to do about it? That was what came up. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but you're an elected official. What are you going to do about it? All you did was, and again, it's the thermostat and thermometer. All you did was tell me the temperature out there. I know that. I need you to go into Congress and start legislating some stuff to change the temperature called thermostat. Isn't that what we put him there for? Not to preach to us what we all agree on, depending upon your party. Right? And you know what we call people like that? And they're all on TV, because this is what they all do. You watch Tucker Carlson, you watch Rachel Maddow, you watch these people, and all they're going to do is tell you what you already believe, depending upon what news media you're looking to. But no one's giving us answers to how are we going to fix this. But all we can do is point. How long have we had a border crisis? I'm going somewhere. I'm not being political. I'm going somewhere with this. How long have we had a border crisis? And we've had Democrats in there for 8 years. We've had Republicans as a president for 8 years. They don't want to fix it, but they like talking about it. They love talking about it. And the crime, love talking about it, but they're not doing anything. You got to understand, what we have leading this country and has leading this country for the longest time? Blowhards. That's what they are. That's what came in my spirit watching this guy, who's a Republican congressman, do-nothing Republicans, versus the lie-to-your-face Democrats, blowhards. And they don't fix the system. They're the problem, not the remedy. I'm not a party person, so if I just stepped on your party, sorry. They are blowhards. And I'm done. I'm done. And if we don't start voting people in there that really truly want to change the system, then you're just going to keep infiltrating the White House with blowhards. They never ever give you the remedy. They're never out there trying to fix it. They just love talking and pointing the finger at each other. And no one's doing anything. Now, I don't care about that, because Jesus says my kingdom is not of this world. So that makes sense. They're the blind leading the blind. What do I expect? And then I'm thinking, oh my God, the church has its own blowhards. You know what a blowhard is? Someone who's arrogant, who's pompous, who boasts, who's very opinionated, and who's a windbag. Look it up in the dictionary. They're windbags. They got no answer. There's no depth, and they're never going to change anything. They just love talking. I think they love hearing themselves talk, like seeing themselves on TV. But it's in the church. And how is it in the church? Just watch Christian television. No depth. No depth. And all they do is talk, and you never change as a person. If you listen to them today, they're always telling you what you can get from God, but they never talk about spiritual formation and that you are to be learning Christ and manifesting Christ, because it's really about a person. But no, what you have is all we do is talk, and there is no change. Absolutely no change. Because I know this way more than politics. I dip my foot in politics, and I don't want to do any more than that, my toe. But I'm heavily rooted in the church. So I know what I'm talking about. I worked for Christian television in the 80s. And here I am in 2020, and nothing's changed. All we do is look for new fads, new programs, new methodology, and Christ has never preached, and transformation has never had. No one's coming off the Mount of Transfiguration and casting out demons anymore. We're not on the mountain of transfiguration, which is another word for being spiritually formated. And then when we come down here in real life, we are susceptible to everything the enemy throws at us. So you've got a bunch of Christians on pills. You got Christians on alcohol. You got Christians that are infested with every addiction out there, and then the divorce rate, or they don't even love each other. Families aren't being Isn't Jesus supposed to be transforming? And yet we still... it's amazing to me that I will know people from the 90s that I haven't seen in a while, and I know them very well, and I haven't seen them for 2-3 decades, and I see them, they haven't changed a bit. Still the same problems, same attitude, personalities that they don't look any more like Jesus. If anything, they look more like themselves and less like Jesus. Why is that? Because the church is not preaching Christ. And that's why we need to rediscover Christ. I don't know about you, but I am tired of the talk. I'm tired of talk, and no action. And that's what I want to talk to you about, action. And if you go to James chapter 2, verse 14, look what he says here. What does it profit, you brethren, though a man say he have faith? And we all proclaim faith all the time. We believe, which is really not the right, it's not mental assent, but that's as far as they go anymore, is faith is mental assent, and that's where they stop, and that's where the problem is, because we've talked about this before. However, he says, what does it profit a man to say he has faith and has no what? So it seems to me that if you're really operating out of true biblical faith, it's going to have some action. And James is saying, you guys do all this talking, but there's no action. What good is your faith, which we talk about, if it doesn't correspond in some type of an action, which is a manifestation of the life of Christ, which is also called good works? Now, he'll go on to say in verse 17, even so faith, if it does not have works, if it hath not works, it's dead, being alone. Now, if that's what you want, then call it for what it is. If you're the type of a Christian who does not put your faith into action, then just say my faith is dead. Because don't tell me you have faith and there is no manifestation of the life of Christ happening. Called what? Good works. Or fruit. Is that what he's saying there? So let's put a pause on that and let's go back to politics. These guys talk and there's absolutely no action happening in the House. And then the senators, well, I can't do nothing because they point to the House points to the senators, and then they point over here to this, it's the president, it's this, it's that, it's Schumer, it's McConnell. This is a circus. And if you have any faith in that circus, woe be unto you. What's going on? And the church is no different. Because we talk a good talk, but there's absolutely nothing being manifested called power, glory in the church today. And I'll show you that here in a minute, but let me go on with James. So, verse 20, that's the next one. So faith without works is dead. That's what I felt listening to that guy. All you're doing is telling me what you believe, but you're not putting it into any type of action. So what are you there for? What am I here for? And what are you here for if what we're believing in doesn't result in your life being changed and in some type of action or fruit, whatever you want to call it? So faith has to have an object, and that object is a person, not a religion. It's a person that you're one with, that you're in union with, that you share life with. And then James will go on to verse 22 and say this. And why he says verse 22 is that Abraham, he's going to use Abraham as an example, who hears God, who believes God, who just doesn't give mental assent to God, but what did God tell him? To take your only son and offer him to me. Now he's got to put feet on what he believes. which means action. So he's got to believe what he's hearing, take that son, and go up to the mountain. That's faith and works. So what if Abraham says, I'm a God believer, I'm a God believer. So God tells him something and he refuses to do it. Then what good is faith if it doesn't correspond in action? Does that make sense? So look what it says. You see then his faith, talking about Abraham, and his actions. His faith and his actions were working together. And his faith was made complete by his fruit, or what he did. Right? We've got to stop talking. And we've got to start acting on what we believe. There's got to be a transformation that results in fruit. Or there's a disconnect somewhere. And you need to admit you have dead faith. You have dead faith. I know you don't want to admit that, but are you offended at the doctor if somehow you got gangrene and he says that foot is dead? It's got to come off. Are you offended? Because if he doesn't take that off, what happens? It'll spread. It'll get in your blood system. So you got to admit, I don't think we admit where we are. Is it because we're prideful? Well, that's a whole other subject. Is it because we're blind? Well, then that's a whole other subject. See, if your faith is not transforming you into action, you got to be honest with that and call it for what it is, or you just don't care. And that's fine, but at least admit it. But we got to get rid of the just talk. And God had this problem with Israel, and Jesus quotes this prophet in his day and age. And it's the same problem. Isaiah 29, verse 13, Jesus quotes this scripture, but I'm going to go with the actual quote, or not the quote, but the actual scripture. The Lord says, this is God speaking to Israel through the prophet Isaiah, these people come near to me with their mouth. What do you do with your mouth? Talk. And they honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship of me is based on merely human rules that they've been taught. Religion. They show up for the religion. And they mouth it, they lip it, they talk it. In the words of, they honor me with their words, but I see there's absolutely no action corresponding with what they're saying. In fact, what they do is the opposite of what comes out of their mouth. Because if you go to Isaiah chapter 1, I don't know, it's in chapter 1, he says, I've had enough of your worship. Stop bringing me the bulls, the goats, the worship. Stop praying. Stop all that, because it's a stench to my nostrils. It's not what I'm looking for. And I think the church has to wake up to that. Is that where we are as a church? All talk, all religious activity, but where is Christ truly being manifested in all this? So we got to get out of that. So what does Paul say? Has Christianity become all talk and no action or power? Now look what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, or chapter 2, verse 1. And I, brethren, when I came to you, came not with excellency of speech. Talk. I didn't just come and really emphasize, and just really came to you as a good orator. He said, I didn't even come to you with what the predominant wisdom was. Declaring unto you the testimony of God, next. And my speech, again talk, and my preaching, talk, was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, like politicians, but I came to you with a demonstration of the Spirit and of power, that your faith should not stand in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. So he backed up his words with the power of God, which is action. So when the power of God showed up, things were happening. The glory of God was in their midst. And God was moving, called action, based on not just talk, but power. Action. What use is it if the power does not manifest in our speech? What use is having the speech? So this is a perfect example scripturally where Paul says, if I come here and all we do is talk, something's wrong. What's happening in the church today? Because there's no power, we go to the excellency of speech. Now our preachers and teachers on TV emphasize their theatrics. They come up with new methods of preaching. They come up with ways to move you by their charisma. They put more emphasis on how they present the gospel. They even have to dress a certain way. If I'm more concerned with my speech and my dress than I am the power of God, we got a problem. In fact, that should be the very last thing. I love Einstein. I mean, I don't know much about him, but I know a guy who doesn't give a rat's ass about his hair. That's my kind of guy, because he's more consumed with the science, and he just didn't care about his hair. He never thought it. There's certain things, you just, whatever shoes, the socks match. Who cares? I am a man on a mission. And what happens is when we let loose of the mission, we'll emphasize everything that doesn't matter. And what's happened in the church is that we've emphasized everything but Jesus. And that's our trouble. So now the emphasis is on my dress. The emphasis is on the structure of the building, the parking lot, the programs, the methods. You. We emphasize you. We make it about you. Or the pastor makes it about him. Look at me. I tell jokes. I dress nice. Anyway. Verse 4. 4 and 5, we already did that? Okay. So, look at what Paul will go on to say. Because faith is so not preached right, taught right today. We've preached on it before, so I'm not re-emphasizing that. But look at Romans 1:5. Paul, by whom we have received grace. He says, I received grace, I received the apostleship, for what? For obedience to the faith. What'd you get saved for? He said, I got grace, and I got my calling. And here's what it's for. Obedience to the faith. But what did you get saved for? To go to heaven? To have a good life? To find utopia in the midst of pain and suffering? What drew you to Jesus? Was it so that you would be obedient to the faith, or so that you could get something out of it? Because I tell you, most of us signed up to get something out of it because that's the way it's presented. There's no cross in evangelism. No one would come. If I say you've got to die, who wants to die? But if I say God will give you a new vehicle, God will heal you, well then we're up here right now. And there's no obedience in that kind of faith, is there? It's a faith of what I can get out of God, not how I can lay my life down for Him. So you see that the whole reasoning is that you obey the faith. You can't separate faith from obedience. That word, those two words go together. Look at what he says here in chapter 16. But now is made manifest, and by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the everlasting God, made known to all nations. Why? This is the gospel. Why? For the obedience of faith. So what am I saying? There has to be action. Action, action, action. And if your faith is not producing action that results from transformation, let's put it in case you haven't got it yet. Faith is Jesus is the focus of your faith, and He transforms, which results in action, works, fruit. Put them all together, synonymous. That's how it works. If something is out of that equation, then right here is wrong. If Christ ain't the focus, everything from now on is wrong. It's the bottom line. And if Christ is the focus, there'll be transformation, and there'll be. So the key right here is having faith in the one who transforms and produces the faith, produces the fruit of the Spirit. Not your fruit, his fruit, because the focus was him. So it's got to be his fruit. The focus is him, it'll be his fruit. Now, the focus of faith is Christ. Hebrews 12:2. Do I have that one? Looking unto Jesus. So there's the focus of your faith. Looking unto Jesus. So our faith has to look to Jesus, who is the author of faith and the finisher of faith. You may have looked at him as the author of faith, but if you don't keep focusing on him, he's not the finisher of faith. You'll move off to something else and focus on. So, rediscovering Jesus will cause you to rediscover faith. So if your faith is wrongly placed, and you get you start focusing on Jesus, your faith will be renewed, restored. So in other words, how do I know my faith is dead? Well, focus on Jesus, and your faith will come alive. As long as Jesus is the focus, your faith will be right. The minute your focus is on anything else, your faith will be flawed. Because now your faith is in something other than him and what he did. So faith in the cross, faith in the resurrection, faith in his ascension. Right? Now watch. Look at Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints. This is you. Are you the saints? Here is the perseverance. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. See how the patience of the saints is that they obey because of their faith. Commandments and faith. Not 10 commandments, but what he is doing in and through you. And yes, commandments will be the outcome of it. The Spirit's not going to get you to disobey the 10 commandments. So we're not throwing away the 10 commandments. We just know I can't do it without this faith in Christ and his life producing those commandments.
Right.
Okay? So I don't know. Maybe I need to say this. I'm not against the 10 commandments. I just know I can't produce them. But if my focus is on Jesus, my faith is in Christ, he'll write those laws where? On our hearts, and action will result, called obedience. It's as simple as that. It's not hard. Can you imagine Jesus showing up? No action, just talk. Can you imagine that? Go read the Gospels, and every time he talked, he performed something, didn't he? Huh? Now, I want you to read through you won't do this, but we'll pretend we'll do it. Read through some of the Gospels, some of the stories, and see him not healing, saying something but not healing somebody. Stop, he's going through the speaking, and when the woman touches his garment, nothing happens. The Canaanite woman wants him, and he says, honey, I don't feed dogs. Nothing happens. The Centurion guy comes to him and says, hey, I have a servant who's, I'm not dealing with that. What? Hey, there's no 5,000 being fed. Hey, I'm sorry you guys came out. You should have brought your lunch. You made your bed, lie in it. Hope you make it home. Wouldn't that really change the New Testament if all Jesus did was talk and no action? Honestly, ask yourself this question. Is that the kind of Jesus you want to read in the Bible and give your life for? One who just tells you stuff, but there's absolutely no action on his side. Nothing he does. Like Philippians 1:6, he who began a good work does what? He who began a good work, what else does he do? The man who begins the good work, what does he do?
Will complete it.
He completes it. But what if he says, hey, I began this thing, you complete it? We're screwed. Well, look at Acts chapter 10. Do I have action? How God anointed Jesus of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, and he went about what?
Doing good.
Action. Healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for God was with him. Action, action, action. That's all Jesus did, was act. Signs and wonders followed him everywhere he went, called action. And Paul says, I didn't just come to talk. I didn't come here to talk. I came here to demonstrate the talk in power. That's what he told the Corinthian church. Action, action, action. Now let me ask you a question. Jesus makes this statement. This is in the Sermon on the Mount. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Right? Is that what he says? Hunger and thirst. When you are in a mode of hunger and thirst, you will take action to eat and drink. Elementary, Watson, right? No genius to figure that out. You'll do that when we leave here. You'll go get something to eat, and you'll go get something to drink. Is that what he's talking about? That kind of hunger and thirsting? And so what is righteousness then? See, if you don't see this thing as if you don't see everything as pointing to Jesus, then you're going to get thrown a little bit on the word righteousness. So what I'm trying to do, and especially on Thursday nights, is show you that everything is pointing to Jesus. So when he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst after me. Because we'll find out in John 6, if you don't eat my flesh and eat and drink. Eat and drink. It's him. You're eating and drinking a person, and it's him that you're hungering and thirsting for. So let's say, for instance, you start dropping weight like crazy and weigh so much that now, it's nice to lose some weight, but this is ridiculous. So what are you going to do? You're going to go to the doctor. And you're going to say to that doctor, I don't know what's going on. I'm losing weight like crazy, and I don't. And he says, are you eating? No, I don't have an appetite. What do you do with somebody who doesn't have an appetite? So the doctor says, well, you're going to have to get an appetite. Because if you don't eat and drink, what's going to happen eventually? You'll starve yourself to death. Your body will go into a mode of starvation. Man can only go 40 days without eating. After that, he's in starvation mode. By the way, just a little cute sidebar here. So, I know you have family and you want to stock some food up for family and have a little bit of some extra. But if I was single, I'd be like, and the crap hits the fan, I'd be like, well, then it's really time to fast. I can go 40 days. So this, having a 30-day supply, I'm single, I can do this. Well, I got a kid, but I won't be able to. But if I was by myself, I'd be like, I don't need a 30-day supply. I can go 40 days. And if life gets that bad, I think we all need to fast. Find out what's going on. Huh? But you'll go into starvation mode if you don't eat. And everybody knows this. And I've never had a problem with anybody in my entire life that could care less about eating. We love to eat. First the natural. What? Then the spiritual. The church is not hungering and thirsting after Jesus. And we are in starvation mode. I'll take that to the grave. I'll take that to the grave because I see it in people's lives. They're more consumed about other things than Christ. Other things come before Christ like that. And there's no hunger and thirst. When you wake up in the morning, God, I'm hungry. You want breakfast. If you don't eat breakfast, by the time noon comes, you'll be really hungry. But do you have that, God, I want you. Jesus, Jesus, because there's a hunger and a thirst for Jesus. You got that? See, if I'm starting to lose weight, then I know I need to go to the doctor to find out why I don't have an appetite. But I'm asking you, have you ever asked the question why you don't have an appetite for Jesus called hunger and thirsting? And there's absolutely no action that you're taking to get the hunger and thirst quenched. What action are you taking? Because you're not hungry. You ever go somewhere or someone says, hey, what do you want for dinner? And your spouse or your kids say, I'm not hungry. And that's okay, that happens. But they're not hungry. So quit reading the Bible, people quit praying, people quit the spiritual disciplines because they're not hungry anymore. They have an absolute no hunger spiritually. So they'll take their appetites and place them tree of knowledge of good and evil called the world system, and they'll eat everything up out there, but spiritually they're starving to death. And I'm going to tell you something. Let me see where I'm at because I'm going to get off that. I'm going to go down a bunny trail here real quick. I'm going to tell you something. For people that are single, people that are divorced, or you find yourself without a mate, you better hope that whoever you're with, whoever you're courting, whoever you're dating, whoever you're looking for, they better be hungry and thirsting. If they're not hungry and thirsting, they're hungry and thirsting after something else. And if the answer and the focus is in Christ, then that marriage is not going to work. Because the enemy is going to come and deceive them. If Christ is not the focus, what do you think that person, so you want that person to have Christ as the focus and that they are hungry and thirsting for more of Jesus to be manifested in their life. Not just fruit, but more fruit. Not just more fruit, but much fruit. John 15. God's going after the whole kit and caboodle called fruit, not just a little bit. You know, we date somebody and say, oh, he believes in God. Oh my God. So does the demons. What are we going to do with that? You want to date a demon? You may be. And then if you're already married, then you and your spouse better be walking this thing out together, because if they fall behind and they start hungering and they cease hungering and thirsting, I guarantee you it's just a matter of time before the devil gets them to fall and that marriage is over with. This is not a game. This is not a game. And you better hope I keep hungering and thirsting, because if I don't, then it affects you in this church, will it not? This whole thing is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst, for they will be filled. Filled with what? More cars and houses and money? Filled with Jesus. As Jesus was filled with the Godhead, we want to be filled with the Godhead in Christ. So you get that by hungering and thirsting. Not just a one-time come to the altar and you're saved and you got God and everything. No, it doesn't work that way. The enemy is out to steal, kill, destroy. He is looking for every avenue in your life. And if Christ is not being, if you're not being full of God, filled with the Spirit, which is being full of God, hungering and thirsting for that filling and getting it by the actions you take, but there's no action. This is what I was talking about Thursday night. Is that, let me just redo the Thursday night real quick. Remember, God is taking us into, and we'll just go with soul, that's what she does. It's called the interior castle. That's the inner life. And the way to get to that inner life, remember, is the door. Can you tell me what the door represents? How do I get to the inner life where transformation takes place, spiritual formation? How does I got to go where Jesus is, and it's inside, and the door is prayer and meditation. Tell me how to get in there if you got another way. Or if you think the door's another thing. Do I get there by watching CNN News? So I'm going to sit for 3 hours and watch the news. Does that give me entrance into the inner life? All that does is let me know what's going on in the exterior world. Not the interior castle, which is your inner man, where your spirit soul is. So where God dwells. So God wants to take you to all these many rooms. Remember? And all these rooms represent different aspects of life. Humility. Maybe He wants to show you something about humility. Maybe He wants to show you something about love. Maybe He wants to show you something. Because every room is where you're wrong and where Jesus is right. Where there's darkness, He's going to expose it by giving you Jesus called light. Every room is light to expel darkness. Okay? So, what would you call prayer and meditation? Action. And why are you acting? Hunger and thirsting for this experience. If you're not praying and meditating on the person of Jesus, you're not hungry. And you'll rarely enter into this inner life, and you'll live your whole life in the exterior, the world and religion. World and religion. World and religion. You ought to be sick of that by now. So let's close. I have a problem with people that are just academic. Because when you're just academic, there is no experience. There's no relationship. You're just about the Greek, you're about the Hebrew, you're about the history, you're about everything, and it never ever corresponds to experience. In other words, knowledge puffs up, but it doesn't. That's why Paul says, when I come among you, I determine to know nothing but Christ and Him crucified. So we can talk about the cross, the cross, the cross, but if it doesn't translate into me having an encounter of the cross, and a lot of these professors and a lot of these theologians are just about the book learning, but it never ever translates into fruit or experience or encounter. So we can sit out here all day long and talk about stuff, but we never meditate and pray on it to come into this arena called the inner life. So theology is us talking about God. Let me just break it down as simple as I can. Theology is talking about God. When a 5-year-old asks mom or dad, where did God come from? She's starting to be a theologian. She's being a theologian at that point. Because theology is talking about God. But just talking about God is not enough. So the patristics have said things like this. And I wrote it down. True prayer, where's it at? Did anybody find it? A theologian will pray truly, and if you pray truly, you are a theologian. In other words, it's not just learning about God, it's encountering the God you're learning about, and you encounter Him through the door called prayer and meditation. Meaning you think about God and you talk to God about God. Who has time for that? Who has time? You're not hungering and thirsting. It boils down that you're not hungering and thirsting. So, experience requires action. Now, this is not legalism. When I heard the grace message, it was great for the time. Because I'll take it any way I can get it. I mean, if your kid needs medicine and they don't want to take it, you put the medicine in some other drink, and they'll drink it, right? And it gets in there, might dilute it, but it's getting in there. I'll take anything to get me out of law. And God introduced me to a couple people with the grace message. This is in the mid 1986 it started. 1986. And it was good. But there was one piece missing in this grace message that actually makes it the grace message. So it's like giving you medicine, but that one element that you need that's in that medicine is missing. So the medicine's not working. It may help a little bit, but that one ingredient is what takes you from sickness to health, and they take that part out and give you the rest of it. Does that make sense? And this is the one piece that makes it the grace message that I didn't get till 2010. 1986 to 2010, I went out without the most important part, which makes it the grace message. John 14, 15, 16. Union. Oneness. The shared life, whatever you want to call it. That I didn't get that piece. So, 20 years ago, if I was sitting there listening to me, I'd say, well, that's legalism. That means I got to do something to get in. I would have called this legalism. That's why I'm saying to you, this is not legalism. If you think that it's legalism, then you don't understand the grace message. You've only got half the grace message. The other grace message is out of that oneness, that shared like partakers of His divine nature, it's not me doing it. It's not me praying. It's no longer I who lives. Therefore, it's no longer I who prays. But it's Christ in me that prays. It's Christ in me that meditates. So Christ in me meditates on Him. Who's getting me to meditate? So in other words, He puts the power and the energy in you to do the things that we're calling action. Am I boring you?
No.
It looks like some of you are bored. This is a matter of life and death spiritually. If you came to me and said, man, pray for me, I'm losing weight and I don't have an appetite. I'm telling you, there are a lot of people in here that are dying of starvation spiritually, and I'm helping you get an appetite. You don't get your appetite, you're not going to hunger and thirst after righteousness. And there's a lot of people, I think it's in the prophet that says you're weighing, you're in the balance. How's that go? You're weighing in the balance. How's that language?
That sounds like it.
Okay, and you're going to have to make a decision here. You're going to have to get an appetite for the things of God, called hunger and thirsting, so that you can be fed. Fed who? Fed who? Fed Jesus. That's going through the door so that you can receive of Him and all that He is, and all the rooms and all the experiences and encounters He has for you. And when I say encounters, I'm not talking about just visions and dreams and things. There are rooms like that, but most of the rooms are going to be, He's going to come after your pride. He's going to come after your envy. He's going to come after your jealousy. He's going to come after your stagnation, your complacency. Those are rooms too. Make sense? So, these things are not legal. These are things that get us through the door. My praying, it gets me in the door. My meditation, by studying the Bible, getting the Word out, that's getting into the door so I can hear Him and see Him. So, how do I get hunger? How do I get the hunger and thirst back? Isn't that why you go to the doctor? Help me get my appetite back? And the doctor will prescribe you some kind of medicine that creates a hunger, right? And then you start eating, you know? I hate prednisone. I eat about 7 meals a day on prednisone, and I won't take it. I'll go through the pain. I will never do that again because I eat like a horse, man. Talk about an appetite. But see, it gave me an appetite. Now, if you give me some spiritual prednisone, where I'm really on fire for God, and man, I'll take that pill. So I'm here to fix your appetite. How do I do it? I can't. So you going to the doctor saying, I don't have an appetite, give me medicine so I can eat and gain this weight back so I can be healthy. I'm saying to you, the medicine to give you a spiritual appetite called hunger and thirsting after Christ's righteousness can only be given to you by asking. But you have not realized you're not hungry and thirsty. You don't realize that you haven't had an appetite for God because you're so busy with the world and distractions in life that you don't realize. So how do I know? You can't get on a scale. I can get on a scale and see whether I'm gaining weight, am I losing weight, right? What spiritual scale can I get on to see whether or not I'm becoming anorexic? By asking myself the true question, am I praying and am I meditating? We'll just stick with those two. That's what she calls the door. Wow, man, I haven't prayed in a while. Okay, well, you don't have an appetite. Call it for what it is. You just don't have an appetite. Meditate? I haven't meditated. I don't even know if I've ever meditated. Okay, well, you've just really been just getting by on inshore, not meat and potatoes. Who wants inshore when you got real food out there? Well, I can't. I don't have an appetite for the regular food. I have to drink inshore. You know what Paul calls that? I came to give you meat, you're still on milk. You don't have an appetite for meat. You ought to be teachers by now. You ought not only be eating meat, you ought to be serving meat. And this is where the church is at. We've got to be honest. Judgment begins where? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to be. God, help me not get mad here. Let me tell you what I'm not going to be is that damn congressman that I saw on TV giving me absolutely nothing but talking points. No action. I'm not going to come to you and just give you talk. I'm going to try to get you through that door. My job is to get you through that door by getting your faith focused on Jesus, who we need to rediscover. Because somehow he's got lost in religion. And we've lost our appetite for him. And your life is a manifestation of a lost appetite if you are not doing the spiritual disciplines. Not for the sake of doing them, but by the grace of God, this is the hunger and thirst that drives me. What did Jesus mean when he says, the zeal of my Father's house consumes me? Does the zeal for knowing Christ consume you? Or are you just too busy? I don't have an appetite for that. I have just enough appetite to drink and shore, and that means I just show up to church. I put in my time, and now for the next 6 days, I'll fast often. I'll fast from Jesus. And I'll get my little ensure when I come next Sunday. And I'm living on such a low calorie that I have no energy to do anything for God because it's such a low calorie diet I'm on with Him. So my faith is dead. This making sense? Let's pray. You can read the other scriptures there. Father, forgive us. We repent because we have absolutely. Now that's not everybody. I'm not singling anybody out. I'm just corporately saying we may not have an appetite for you that we should. In fact, some of us are on a diet with you. And you've spread a table before us to eat up to our full, and we nibble. We nibble at it. The table before us, we nibble at it. When we are to sit down and get our fill. Overflowing. How does a cup overflow? Because of the unquenched thirst. Cup's not going to overflow without a thirst. The cup stays empty. Father, we're not talking. Talk doesn't get it. Action does. Faith without works is absolutely useless and dead. So, Father, we stand in your presence this morning. It's almost a Joshua moment today, right now. This is a Kairos moment. It's what Joshua said to them. Choose this day. He's talking to Israel, people that serve the Lord. He's talking to the church in the wilderness. Choose this day who you're going to serve. He could have said, choose this day what you're going to hunger and thirst for. But as for me and my house, I'm going to hunger and thirst after Christ. Not religion, not things of the world. But I want to be consumed with Jesus as Jesus was consumed with his Father. The zeal of God consumes me. The zeal of God consumes us. That we hunger and thirst for Jesus and nothing else will suffice us. God, give us an appetite. Give us a spiritual appetite for your Son this morning. Father, I pray for everybody here. And I know we all have an appetite to some degree, but increase it. We want to gain weight this morning. We want to gain weight. Because the glory of God in the Greek kabod is weight. We want to gain glory. And to gain glory is to gain the weightiness of God in our lives. and that's the hunger and thirst. Lord, we want to gain weight this morning. Increase our hunger and increase our thirst, that we're not just talkers, but we're people of action. Greater works than these we'll do. We won't be considered people who have faith that's dead. Do nothing Christians. Christian by name only. No. Done with that. Done with that. Done with that. I'm done with it. Done with it. It's empty. It's useless. I have no use for it. There's no profit in it. So go the politics, so go the church, and God forgive us. So Lord, release grace this morning, the very power of your Son in our lives that produces the appetite that we may hunger and thirst after Christ as we rediscover him. Amen. Sing this song. Just, if you want to stand, engage in some worship. You can leave anytime you want. I'm not going to mandate anything. You're mandated to death already with mandates. So you're free to leave whenever you want. You're free to worship. He had a word a while back, and but what I remember from it was that God was calling us to take a plunge, to jump in. And so I'm sitting there, and that word comes to me that he got, and I'm like, okay, so there may be people watching or here that, and there's a scripture for this, don't know where it's at, but again, the prophet is asking, this is from the Old Testament, why have you halted? Why have you stopped? I know Joshua said to them, why are you not, you guys are in the land, but you've stopped. You've stopped possessing it. There's much more land to be had. There's much more land to be had, and they stopped short of receiving the fullness of that land, which that land represents Christ. So I think the prophetic word I just got for us and whoever's listening is, why have you stopped? Why have you halted? There's so much more in Christ to receive. So we're going to have to plunge. We're going to have to take the plunge. Something's keeping us from taking the plunge. If I go this far, Greg, you don't understand. If I take this thing any further, it's going to change too much of my life. And then there you go. Be honest about it at least. But don't lie to yourself. Do not lie to yourself. You're only hurt. It doesn't hurt me. You only deceive yourself. Why am I not taking the plunge? What's keeping me from going in and getting completely immersed in this thing with Jesus? So just take that to the Lord. Pray about it. Because that's what he had that word. We're not going to throw that word out. Because let's say he had it 2 months ago. Oh, we're done. That's a 2-month-old word. That's old manna now. Yeah, it could be, except he just brought it back and made it fresh. That's a fresh word now. Did you ever write that down?
I'm writing about it.
But anyway, take that. Why are you halting? What is keeping you from taking the plunge? Amen. God bless you. See you Thursday night.